Yeah. So we're discussing today your book Prophecies, Dawn's Shadow, which we have right here, which I have read, and it's really, really good. Really enjoyed it. And we'll talk about that in just a moment or two. But before we get into the book, let's learn a little more about the author himself. Tell us a little bit about your background and where you grew up and all that.
Well, I grew up what my mom calls the center of the universe, Medford, Massachusetts, which is
Ah,
about 20 minutes out of Boston. Um, Comedians have called it the outskirts of Boston, even though it's only like 20 minutes away. We call it Metfa because we have our own accent. So, um, just a normal kid watching movies, playing outside, with a stick. Can make anything with your imagination fun to play with.
sure.
So and I saw Star Wars, and then my imagination exploded. And the first story I ever wrote was a Star Wars story. The day after Return of the Jedi, I saw Return of the Jedi. It was horrible. Um, I was only 10 years old, and the only thing I remember of it was they were building a new Darth Vader, if that made any sense whatsoever. But that's pretty much my background as far as writing. I mean, I grew up, went to high school, played basketball. Um, didn't play. I think out of the 2 years I was on the team, I played maybe 5 minutes total altogether. Um, Stole the ball once, which was my career highlight.
Oh, great.
Um, and then then I had to grow up when I graduated high school, went to sort of college. I never graduated college. About halfway through an associate's degree, and went into the business of finance. And that's pretty much what I do.
Oh, great. Yeah. Starting out with a Star Wars fanfic, and now now we have this. It's
Mm-hmm.
good stuff. Good stuff. Yeah. So in terms of your uh reading career, what would you say are some of your favorite authors, and what inspires you in your writing?
Well, I don't actually have favorite authors. I have favorite stories.
Okay.
Um, I really love reading Harry Potter, The Hunger Games.
Hmm.
I enjoyed reading the Virgin series and the Twilight series. So reading all those got me into finally deciding that I wanted to try to write my own book. Um, and what um, inspired me most was Star Wars because it's always been in my life. The
Sure.
Probably right there, Darth Vader's lightsaber hanging on my wall. Um,
Yeah.
and
And
I
your even your name on this is Lord Vader. So
Yeah, yeah. Um,
yeah.
so I the first I first tried writing a book in a fanfic Star Wars again, but this was like years later when I actually didn't know what I was doing still. But
Hmm.
um, and then I learned that to even get something like that published, you have to jump through so many different hoops. I couldn't self-publish it myself and all that stuff. So I took that story and turned it into what you have in your hands there. Um, so that's pretty much my inspiration. And I took all the characters in that book, with the exception of the two main characters,
Hmm.
Mayana and Angela, are all Dungeons and Dragons characters that I've created and played over the years. So they're characters I knew inside and out because if you know anything about Dungeons and Dragons, you actually become those characters. So
Yeah, I haven't played D&D in, I don't know, 35 years or something, but I am a little familiar with it. Yeah, and in reading this, I did kind of get a Dungeons and Dragons quest vibe out of it.
Yeah.
So yeah. So good stuff. Yeah. Uh, so we're talking today with Michael Roccia, author of Prophecies, Dawn's Shadow, and we're going to get into the book itself in just a moment. But we'll just do a real quick commercial break, and we'll be right back. Hey everyone, Editor Bill here. Just wanted to let you know that we now have a Patreon. Just go to this link right here, patreon.com, in the library BG, and you'll get access to all kinds of behind the scenes material, all kinds of Zoom calls with a group, and extended videos, like an extended version of this interview that you're watching right now. So let's go to patreon.com/in the library BG and come join the community. We'd be happy to see you. And we're back with author Michael Roccia, author of Prophecies, Dawn's Shadow. Let's get into the book itself. Now, well, you talked a little bit about your inspiration of the book. Anything more you'd like to say about that?
Well, hearing the stories of how the authors of my favorite stories came about, I thought to myself that finally it was like if others can write and do it, and I've always loved writing. I used to write stories, just random stories all the time when I was younger. And English, when we would write literary stories, I would always write fiction. And I decided I wanted to give it a try. So I wrote the first book I ever wrote, which was, I don't want to say horrible, but it was amateurish. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know how to write. I just figured you sit down in front of a computer and start banging away at the keys.
Yeah.
And my mom read it and hated it. She couldn't follow it. She said she couldn't read the names of the characters, so she couldn't get involved with them because she didn't know how to pronounce their names.
Yeah.
So that was the Star Wars fan fiction I originally decided I was going to try to write. And instead of trying to fix that, I decided I did some research and I learned what I learned about even getting something like that published. So I just decided to start over, and I made the names a lot easier.
Yeah.
And I took aspects of that story and put it into this story, changing it up a little bit because you can't have like the Force,
right,
lightsabers and stuff like that. You can't have those banging around. So I created my own world. I had this little cheat sheet just so I remembered what creature I had to create the world from scratch. So every creature I created, I had to write a little like a cheat sheet on the side, so I remembered what it was if it ever came back. So
yeah.
Then finally, and I was working, so I would write every on my lunch hour. I would take my laptop, go down in this little corner by myself and write for an hour. It took me about, I want to say, a month to get the first draft of the book.
Right. It does take time, especially the first draft. Yeah. Especially a book like this. You're absolutely right. You got to create the world, got to create all the characters, figure out what they're all about. And
the characters are actually easy because I'd been those characters.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
It was more the story than the and the world created around them that was the hardest part.
That's a good point. Yeah. Now, is this your first official published novel?
Yeah. I had tried to get literary representation to try to get it published through the mainstream, how you get it published and all that stuff. And I got rejection letters after rejection letters after rejection letters. And then I took a break give it some time. Then I tried it again. Rejection letters. They're always polite when the responses I got. Some you don't get responses. Some they just say if we're not interested, we're not gonna say anything.
Right.
Some gave me responses and said, and of course you only give them the first five pages of it, because if they're not into it by then, they're not going to be into it.
Yeah.
So, and then finally, my mother actually self-published it for my 50th birthday during a surprise party,
Nice.
and rolled out those books as a surprise. So I had no idea it was done. She had worked on it for like, I want to say 2, 3, 6 months before the party. I was having a surprise party and everyone was there.
Yeah.
And then she said her thing and we published it. And all of a sudden, the book was real and I had it in my hand and I cried like a baby.
Yeah.
I was a hungry, angry baby.
That's a
And then we had our own little, like with everyone that was there, family and friends, we had our own little book signing, which was kind of fun.
Oh, that's pretty cool. That's
Mm-hmm.
pretty cool, actually. Yeah. That's a heck of a surprise. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it knocked me for a loop.
Now, and am I correct in thinking that this is the first of a 4-part series?
Either a 4 or 5. It
4 or 5.
depends. And the last book, the last part of the story, I'm not sure if it's too long to be one book, or if I got to split it into 2.
Okay. What would you like to, spoiler free if you like, but why don't you tell us a little bit about the story? And do you know how the story ends?
Yes, I do know how the story ends. I know how each book ends. I know how I've actually written the second book already, and I'm halfway through the third. Because my whole philosophy is if you don't know the ending, you don't know how to get your characters to it. So I always came up with the ending to begin with. So that's the first thing I come with a story is the ending. So I have the ending of the entire series, have the ending of each book, and then just go right to get to that spot.
Right.
And the overall story is there of course is the evil overlord who had learned of a prophecy that something is going to be his downfall. And so he puts a bounty on all girls with red hair. So, and he's the most powerful, is the most feared. So throughout the land, people are hiding their daughters with red hair. And the main character of the story is born with red hair. And they find out about her and they're chasing her to catch her. And her and her sister being her guardian, so to speak, are basically trying to run and get away from all those that are trying to get at them, whether it be directly sent from the overlord or just someone wanting to cash in on the bounty and all that stuff. So that's a spoiler-free version of everything. She has to, and then they're trying to get to a certain spot that is supposedly that will try to help them. And that's the main point of the first book, is them learning about the bounty and trying to get away from it and stay safe. So trying to get help wherever they can, and trying to understand the difference between if they're actually trying to help or if they're just trying to pretend to help to get them to take the bounty.
Right. Awesome. And how did you come up with the title?
Well, the first title I created was Managing and the Tribulation Warriors. But after a while, too many sent out rejection letters. I went to actually school to learn how to write and learn how to get an agent and stuff. And one of the things that they suggested, if you get too many rejection letters with a certain title, you should change the title if you want to keep trying that book, because especially since there's only so many literary agents, period. You rewrite it, you rewrite the beginning at least, to try to make it more compelling for someone who's reading it, and then you change the title. So it's about a prophecy, so I decided to just name the whole series Prophecies. And then each book will have their own sub name. And Dawn Shadow, I just played around with how dawn being the beginning, so this is the beginning of it, and it's like something is coming at them, like they're in the shadow of this unknown. So that's how I came up with the name.
No, that's good. That's good.
And the picture there too with the sun, and they're stuck and they're in the shadow of the one of the creatures that are after them.
Oh yeah, so this is one of the creatures that's after the girls. Yeah. Yeah. What was you talked about the characters a little bit already, but what was the most fun character to write, and what was the most challenging one to write?
The most fun character to write was Frog. Frog is a character that I've played almost since the beginning of playing Dungeons and Dragons. He's in every game I've ever played, even superhero games, even Dungeons and Dragons, even the new game I'm playing, Baldur's Gate 3. I created Throg. Every game I ever play, I always create that one character first. There's so many different versions of him, but he's always more or less the same because he's the character. So I know him in and out. He's like part of me. So I know how he's gonna react before he reacts. So he just having him react to both being with the humor or the seriousness or just his emotions or whatever, I know it front and out. So it's just fun to write him. The most difficult character for me to write was Simon. And the main reason for that is Simon is smarter than I am. And there's a whole thing in Dungeons and Dragons. You can always role play someone dumber than you easy. Role playing someone smarter than you is difficult because you're not that smart. You know this character should know stuff, and you don't know, so you kind of have to fake your way through and being smart. So I had to do a lot of, and he's a wise character, so he's the sage. So I had a lot of his lines I would have to write and rewrite because he became sounding like the dumbest smart person you knew. So I had to rewrite that sounds good. That sounds something like Yoda would say. Okay, we're good.
Yeah.
So and rewrite. And actually, at the beginning of the book, there's a quote that I put in the front on the first page that is from Simon.
Yeah.
It's like the second page or something.
Yeah. The important question you must ask yourself is, would the prophecy have come true if it was never put into words? Yeah. Yeah. That's a hell of a question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You didn't know about it would still happen.
Yeah. That's true. True.
But trying to say that and not sound like an idiot. So
yeah. I gotcha. Where else that you could find the book, or do you have a website?
Barnes and Noble. It's in Barnes and Noble, and there's some others. I went through a publishing company that I paid the money, and they put it in all the bookstores.
Yeah.
It's print on demand. It's you can find it at like thrift stores, I guess. This stuff like that. I mean, every once in a while, I'll Google it just to see where it is. It'll be some random some random store I never heard of where you could buy it. But the main two things I wanted was being on Amazon and being in Barnes and Noble, because Barnes and Noble is a big bookstore. So those are
Absolutely.
the two big places that I wanted to be able for people to get it.
Yep. And I'll have those links down in the description under this video, and we'll be sure to do that. And thank you again, Michael, for coming on the show. And again, the book is Prophecies, Dawn's Shadow. This is book 1 of 4 or 5. We'll see. And
I do have a website with an easy link if it'll help. I
oh,
created
yeah,
a website.
yeah.
It's it's straight my name, Michael A Roccia III, so the third, because it sounds cool.
Yeah,
.com.
great.
It's pretty simple.
All right, we'll make sure all those things are down in the description. And thank you again for coming. And for all of you watching, thank you for watching. And please keep on reading. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you.